Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, Snoopy office receptionist. Excuse me, did you just take what I told you not to? Want to steal from patients? I'll just flare your intolerance. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Snoopy office receptionist. Worked in a big tech company, and our receptionist was the nosiest, rudest woman with whom I've ever had the misfortune to work. She officially had limited duties one would expect from a receptionist, but took it upon herself to be the office police and monitor. We walk in, she looks at the clock and notifies us if we're a minute late. We leave for lunch, she again looks at the clock and asks where we're going. We get a package delivered, she has to know if it's business or personal, and what's in it. A friend comes over to meet someone for lunch, she has to know why they're there, where we're going. She'd come by and look around our desks while we're at lunch. She'd take a smoke break and prop open the main door so she could hear the phones and let the smoke waft in the lobby. To management, she was the golden child and could do no wrong. But to everyone else, she was a suck-up and we didn't like her one bit. The big open-air, two-level lobby, where her desk was, sat directly below the upstairs lounge, where we could take a break from work, look out the window, and relax for a bit in quiet. The front of her desk was directly below the second-story railing. Sometimes she'd call out, "Who's up there? Is it your break time to be up there?" if she heard someone. When she leaned her head over the front of her desk and looked up, she could see anyone at the railing. Or take the big lobby staircase upstairs and look who's there. Between these two levels and above her desk was an air duct, which blew air horizontally toward the main door. And our AC system had recently been tested and cleaned. One day, some friends and myself left for lunch, passing by her and out through the front door. But I circled around the building and came back inside via the back door. I quietly took the back staircase up to the lounge and began our campaign to drive her crazy. I'd bought a 6-pack of those kid-sized bubble bottles with the wand a few weeks back for this very purpose. So I crept over to the railing, above the AC vent above her desk, and quietly blew tiny bubbles down to her desk for a few minutes. From my position, I could see her faint reflection in a window pane we tested before that anyone at her desk couldn't see upstairs, as she attempted to figure out what was going on. "What the? Anyone up there?" she called, and muttered to herself. When the air stopped blowing, I stopped with the bubbles. I heard her start up the stairs, so I sneaked out of the empty lounge, waited a few minutes, then went back at it. I left the building the same way I entered for the prank, and came back in with my coworkers through the front door after lunch. She was on the phone with the office manager saying that the AC was malfunctioning. The next day, at a different time, I repeated the bubbles. This went on for a few days, but I only did it when she was on duty. If I had a day off, one of my cohorts did the bubbles. The manager called the AC company back out to find out what was going on with the system, but they couldn't find anything wrong. And she swore bubbles were coming out of the vent. No one else in the office had seen them, and a few said she was imagining things. Note, this was before video recording on phones, so she couldn't attain proof. She continued begging the manager to fix the problem as it was driving her crazy, but eventually he said she was just nuts and refused to listen to her. Even after I left for another job, the bubble tradition with my cohorts continued to torment her. The bubble conspiracy has yet to pop? I would have paid to overhear the phone call to the AC people. "Yeah, hey, so you guys were here last week, awesome work by the way, and now my receptionist is saying there are, bubbles coming from the vent? Is there a chance you used too much soap to clean the vents?" I cannot even imagine what the AC people would have thought about that. Bubbles, you say? This would have made my day as a property manager. I love weird low-stakes dramas like this. Last week someone snuck into an office in the middle of the night and did nothing but repot an African violet on the front desk. But nothing beats the time I got a call saying that blood was coming out of the faucets. That is awesome, and hats off for a creative, funny, and extremely effective way to drive her nuts. My question is this: why would you even engage with this type of person? I would have told her it was none of her business. She's not your boss. But the third paragraph, I was wondering who she slept with to get away with this shit. Could everyone start using a different dirt to leave for lunch? Or mess with her, go out one and return using the other? Go out the front and come in the back. When winners were you, or later say you were there the whole time and she must have missed you retuning. Go out the back and come in the front saying she forgot you had left with your colleagues. I would have had my co-worker do the bubbles while I was talking to her. I would then just ignore the bubbles. And if she pointed it out, I would have said, "What do you mean by bubbles?" I would have met her questions with, "Gee, I don't know, have a nice day." Or, "If you don't know, you don't have to know, have a nice day." That's not your job, is my response. I'm a contractor and had a new reject that was totally in my business of how I went about my responsibilities. I finally told her that I've been coming to this business longer than you've even been working here. Now she just gives me the stink eye whenever she sees me rolling on the floor laughing. Excuse me, did you just take what I told you not to? I work at a library, and one of my tasks is dealing with donations of books. I arrange them on a cart and walk around with it between the shelves, comparing the new books with the library's ones, then deciding whether to switch them or not. I was doing this today when a woman approached the cart and started checking out the books. I told her these books are not for borrowing, and she said she was just looking, so I resumed what I was doing. After she moved, I went back to the cart, and, lo and behold, one of the books was missing. It was a donated copy that I paired with the library's one to replace. I confronted her and asked if she took it, and she begrudgingly gave it back. Usually I just let people take the registered book and save the new copy for when the old one returns. But she didn't listen and lied to me, and I was being petty, so I just put it back in the cart and left. Later, though, I realized I could have let her take it, then the librarian would tell her the book wasn't registered and ask her where she got it. Maybe next time. Or she might have not shown the unregistered book and stole it. She likely would have walked out with it because no tattletale. Or maybe she would just claim it was hers to begin with? I often wonder how people like that, people who act like toddlers when out in the world, survive. If all of her decision making is like this, it must make life in general very hard. I don't think you were all that petty, she deserved it. I often wonder how people like that, people who act like toddlers when out in the world, survive. They're accustomed to others bending the rules, so the world conforms to them instead of having to deal with reality. Sort of have to. You're the authority in a third space. If you allow people to break the unspoken common courtesy rules, it becomes really unpleasant. As someone who has worked in my town's public library for 13 years, I can confirm the entitlement of some people. Want to steal from patients? I'll just flare your intolerance. This happened a long time ago, 10 or 11 years ago. I worked in the healthcare sector, taking care of patients. Anyways, we had this manager who would always come in and go to our floor in the mornings, taking lactose-free milk from the patient fridge for her coffee in the mornings. We told her over and over to stop, as it could be considered theft, and her response was always, "It's just a little milk. No knee will care." Her behavior was also really bad towards the staff and patients. My coworkers and I had had enough when she decided to start making herself toast using bread and condiments from the same patient fridge. One day, my coworkers and I beat her to the floor. We dumped out the lactose-free milk, we replaced it with a new one afterwards, and filled it up with 18% creamer. Our manager came to the floor and, as usual, poured herself some lactose-free milk for her coffee and went into her office. At around noon, our manager was holding her stomach and walked towards the front door. She looked green. She told us she couldn't stay off the toilet since she got there. We outright told her what we did and said that if she goes to our big boss, we had a lot on her that could get her in equal amounts of trouble. Me and my coworkers were moved to different floors the next morning and not allowed to work together again as per that manager's request. I completely misunderstood one day my coworkers and I beat her to the floor and had to reread that part. Maybe a visit to HR is a thought, just make sure everyone who has a grievance with her also goes to HR. Let HR know she is a problem and maybe should be considered a thief. OP said it happened 10-11 years ago. Going to HR back then would have been a good idea. And I would not have fessed up to switching the lactose free. Let her continue and decide for herself what the problem is. Why didn't you just go to HR to begin with? Repeated thefts with numerous witnesses would have sufficed enough to create a substantial complaint without risking serious jail time by doing that to her. The patient fridge is literally stocked by the hospital and OP is leaving that part out because they tried to play a power move on her. Notice how their threat was never carried out in the story? The manager was nice, I would have written them up. Yeah, that was not a good prank. You are lucky you did not end up in jail. Locking the refrigerator would have been my choice. Maybe people shouldn't steal stuff that doesn't belong to them. As someone who has made X-Lax brownies in the past to deal with a lunch thief, I approve of OP's message. Go to jail for what? There's no crime in storing one thing in a different container. My fridge is currently full of stuff in random containers. Everyone who had permission to touch it, let alone use it or consume it, knew exactly what it was. Not their fault someone stole it and gave themselves a tummy ache. Why would you out yourselves? Seems like the manager was the one who got revenge in the end by separating you and your coworkers. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.